bill you took is part of a trace program. It's designed to disrupt your input-output carrier signal so we can pinpoint your location. What does that mean?
It means buckle your seatbelt, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye-bye.
Howdy, howdy, everybody. Welcome back to Cause Before Symptom. I am your guest host, your usual guest host, Urban. It's nice to be back with everybody tonight. James is out on business. He's got a trip that he had to take, so he'll be out for the next probably about 7 days, week, maybe a day or two, minus or plus. I'm not necessarily sure yet. But while he's gone, we're going to actually, I've got a couple movies that we're going to go through, just because a few of the nights I'm going to be busy, so I'm going to do a movie a night for everybody. The movie is going to go, or the movies, the Age of, I think it's Age of Deceit documentary series. I'm going to play that for you guys because, you know, those documentaries, the first one was like 10, 12, 13 years old at this point, and the stuff that it's talking about is now where we're at in 2026. So let's see, we've got James Forrester, who says, my name is James Forrester from the Yarra Valley, Victoria, Australia. And he said, I'm awesome. That sounds pretty awesome, man. I would love to see that part of the world. I bet it's very beautiful where you're at. Glad to have you with us. Boots, usual, Boots is here every night. How's it going, Urban Warrior family? Hoping everybody's all right. All right. And if everybody could hit the like button, it does help our host out. I appreciate that, Boots. It does help us out. You know, it's really the lifeblood of content creation, is you got to have likes, because, you know, that's the metric by which content gets, you know, shown or not shown, recommended or not recommended. Now, YouTube has got a new feature. I don't really know how it works. It's called the hype feature. So if you upload a video, people can spend like some type of points that they get for interacting on content, and they can hype the video. And it'll just show if it's like, oh, people, you know, really like what this person's doing. You know, we're hyped to see new content, is I guess the idea of it. So while James is gone, what we're going to do is, turns out, you know, James wrote the Breath Wars series, and I know that he's actually had a chance to finally do the audiobooks, and I've shown that. As a matter of fact, just because I can, I'm going to go ahead and pull that back up just to kind of give it a nice plug. And the link to the Breath Wars series audiobooks that James did, that's already in the description. It's part of, like, every time I schedule a live stream to go out, it's already in the description. It's like in the template that I made. So this is the playlist on Rumble. That's where James uploaded them to. He uploaded them to Rumble. How's it going, Argerson? I didn't see you, my bad. Nice to have you with us. Glad to have you. So the Breath Wars series, I call it I guess that's really my invention. I call the whole series of books, he's written 5 to date, I just kind of refer to them as the Breath Wars series, because the first book is called Breath War, and it presents the whole framework, the whole breath, battery, energy harvesting. People know it as loosh harvesting, but James has really approached it from the biblical perspective, with the biblical backing, and he's discovered, primarily through comparing different texts, and he said that he learned a lot from the Ethiopian Bible, and he's been doing a giant series that's also linked in the description if anybody's interested. James has done, I'll show that next, he's done a whole series. Let me scroll through this. So he's done a whole series comparing King James and the Ethiopian Bible. So the Breath Wars narration, the first book is in 4 parts, so it's long, but then the other parts are much shorter. So the first book, Breath War, in 4 parts. Second, he read The Ritual Machine in 2 parts, The Crown of Blood in 2 parts, and most recently he's finished The Stone That Speaks in 3 parts. So he's got 1 book left that he hasn't done yet. He'll probably do that at some point in the future. I'm not sure yet. He's been pretty busy lately. I've got the interviews that he and I did, the 2 part interview series that we did, and then older episodes that he did when he published the other editions. So that's the playlist on Rumble. That's on James's channel. You can find it if you go to James's channel, go to playlist. I'm on a PC, but you can get to that on the mobile app, I believe. Here is the Ethiopian Tuihito Orthodox Bible versus the King James. Kind of does it side by side. You you can get the Ethiopian Bible on his website. He has the original Ethiopian language and then the English translation. And you can, it's jamescarner.com. You can download those if you're interested. And then this playlist is actually, he's made, it's probably the longest series he's ever done by far. He started it 5 months ago, it looks like. Let's see, January 4th, 2026 is when he started the series, starting with Genesis. So he's going through the entire Bible, which is going to be just invaluable. I think this is an amazing series. Even though I have to say I've only seen like a good third of it, maybe, just because there's like 47 episodes in here. And so to do the whole series and get through the whole series, it's there for anybody who's interested, but it's definitely something that's just hard to squeeze into so much time, 24 hours in a day. Let's see, he's got up to 44 parts, which was the last video we did last night. And there's a few extras in here. So this is going to be a whole playlist organized from start to finish with James comparing the Ethiopian Bible to the King James. It'll be the entire Bible by the time he gets done with it. Probably by the end of the year, maybe if not sooner. So yeah, those are the two playlists. And while we're here, I'll just go ahead and show you what else he's got. The Breath Wars playlist. He's got the Black Nobility Bloodlines, which is a pretty good series. That's another one-of-a-kind series. There's no other series like this on the internet. Nobody has done anything close to this series, because there's 14 videos in this playlist, 13 Zoroastrian bloodlines, and then he did one finale show where he kind of does a retrospective. And so each of the Zoroastrian, papal, nobility, Italian, Spanish bloodlines have their own video, one whole video dedicated to them. And he's also got articles on his website. Those are all linked in the description of the Rumble video on his channel. So I think if people had no idea about that, even because I'm on some of, like when I'm streaming on my channels, I'm sure that people might not have known about this. So if you haven't heard of this yet, if you're new to the channel on whatever platform you're on, I've actually put this on other platforms. It's on X, Twitter, formerly Twitter, which is just heavily shadow banned on there. I've got 2,200 followers on Twitter or X, and I post anything, and there's no way I'm getting 10 likes on it. People who I am friends with, that I know and talk to on there, for some reason, the only people who generally, like, I would like to see whatever they post, I don't see it. We don't see each other on our timelines. And this is not just X. I mean, X has its own tricks. Social media platforms are just getting really zombified now. Substack, listen, I have been pleasantly surprised by the people on Substack. People on there feel real still. So it's definitely you can tell the difference. It's a night and day difference almost, interacting with people on Facebook or on X versus interacting with people on Substack. Maybe it's just people, better people over there, but either way, whatever the reasoning is, it's still nice. However, that one thing that's just weird, I've been stuck in the same range of subscribers on Substack. Now, people can subscribe for free, and that, by far the vast majority of people who subscribe on Substack, they're free subscribers, but I am still talking about people who are free subscribers. But in that total, I've been stuck in the 19,000. I haven't got to 20,000 yet, but I've been in 19,000 for about a month. So I'll go up by 100, then I'll go down by 100, then I'll go up by 50, then I'll go up by 300, but then I'll go down by 200. And it's just, I don't know, it'll be a year goes by and I'm still in that range. I'm going to probably be thinking something's fishy about that. But yeah, all the other platforms that we're on, I appreciate any followers that I get from any of them. Really, my end goal for anybody who watches any of this content, hopefully you make it back to the Substack, or I always provide more information, and James always provides more information. He usually writes the whole article or puts as much of the article in the description as possible, or he'll leave a link. So if you make it back to all my other content, that's my goal, because for the most part, I try to put everything on every platform, but I do that. For instance, YouTube, there are some things that I just can't even put on YouTube because it won't last, or I'll have trouble, or I might, get in trouble or something like that. So people are really recommended to follow James and I on Rumble. I do prefer Rumble. I also like Odyssey is good too. But I know that, by far when you're trying to do content, it's hard if you're not on YouTube. But Rumble, people have been kind of making a big migration over to Rumble. And so, for obvious reasons, because Rumble feels like YouTube used to back in 2010, back in the good old days when YouTube was just, man, it's great. Never going to have that again, because it's just, man. But what we're going to cover tonight, because I brought up the breath wars, but we're going to talk about, unfortunately, it seems like they may have made some headway at current technology, tokens, blockchain technology, which is an interesting story about that. Perhaps a lot of what James said is kind of already in the works. Perhaps, not all, but I was actually surprised, because I just discovered a lot of this. This stuff was out there for a while. I just had not been in that direction. And so it was sitting out there, and then recently I was listening to an interview, and somebody brought up this term, artificial liquid intelligence, ALI, artificial liquid intelligence. So I started looking into it. What is artificial liquid intelligence? Well, what they're doing is people have heard of NFTs, non-fungible tokens, and it was kind of made, like, people laughed it off very quickly. And what they're actually doing, because why wouldn't they? It just sounds like a brilliant idea. They're taking NFTs, non-fungible tokens, and they're mixing it with genomes, genomic data, DNA, human genomes, about, take your DNA and sequence your DNA and store it in a blockchain, an iNFT, an intelligent non-fungible token. And that is what these Age of Deceit documentaries that we're going to play over the next couple of nights. There are 4 of them, so 4 of the next nights we're going to have those playing, and I'll be here for some of them, and some of them I'll be busy, but I'll still have them play either way. And those documentaries, which were made, the first one, again, was probably made over 10 years ago. Then there's 2, 3, and 4. Those are probably made, the last 2 are much more recently, but still, we're in 2026, and I'm just learning about this now. It has been around for a while, but it's very eerily similar to how James interpreted energy harvesting as breath harvesting. What is a contract? So the last couple episodes I did the quantum grammar syntax. Well, why did I cover that? Why were we covering the subjects we did? Well, they've been kind of, taking us in this direction, building a foundation and then working up and connecting things. And I try to go back and recap as much as I can. From my perspective, every time I present, it seems like the information that I do is a great mix of stuff from, the past that I have to redefine. It gives me the opportunity to go back over something. And then the other half is new information. And I do that just because I think, people are going to hold the information, understand the information better if we have just a little extra mention of it to let people hear the words again. And so we're actually going to start with some words. I do have vocabulary words. There's probably something else I was going to say, but we're going to go ahead and get into that now. So let me go ahead and get into some words. That is my specialty, and I'll explain the reason why I introduce certain episodes and certain concepts with kind of word flashcards. So let's see. So let's go to flashcards. So, shoot. There it is. Okay. So we're going to talk about artificial liquid intelligence, and then we're also going to go back over the some breath words and terms that James and I, we had the first part of our breath wars interview that we did about a month or two ago. The first part ended up being just us going over the vocabulary words. Then we did the second episode was us going through slides, and we were talking about James was really giving a lot of extra context and information about, how did he come to understand that. And I was glad that we got a little bit of extra time. And I was really glad that we didn't do just one episode, because if we did one episode, we would have had to not have the extra information. And I would rather spend time on that. So let's get into it. So what is artificial liquid intelligence? It is a protocol that commodifies human cognitive software, allowing users to train, customize, and monetize AI digital characters. Okay, so the narrative publicly is that these are just characters. Okay, if they're interested in it, let them be interested in it. But they're probably spending a lot of time and money, it seems like, to figure out how to put characters on a blockchain. I actually remember exactly what I was going to show you. So characters on a decentralized ledger. What is it really? What are the implications? Well, it's basically financialization of the soul, because if they're mixing it with genomic data, you don't do that for characters, obviously. Anybody, you don't. I feel like that's just common sense. Like you don't spend all this money and time in research and just put characters. It's like you're playing The Sims. Your cognitive footprint, emotional responses, and conversational labor, perhaps in the form of a surrogate model or a digital twin, are systematically extracted with telemetry to build a decentralized hive mind, a decentralized autonomous organization, a DAO, a DAO, decentralized autonomous organization, turning it into unpaid biological feedstock, human husbandry for algorithmic entities, software, daemons. Remember, we defined daemons as background processes or programs. So what is an intelligent non-fungible token? Cryptographic assets embedded with AI animation, voice synthesis, and personality pods, granting them interactive and generative capabilities. It's tokenized consciousness. At least that's the end goal for it. By defining an NFT as having there are three parts to an iNFT. There are three parts: are the body, the soul, and the mind. Now, these are the terms that they have defined. All of the information that I'm presenting to you tonight, when we go to the slides, you're going to even see the little, this is where the citation or where this slide is based off of. And it's just publicly available information. I wanted to know what this stuff was, so I found information on it, and this is their presentation of the topic. This is their marketing material. This is their PDF, getting started, setting up an iNFT. People can do this if they're really interested, if they have the machine and time to do it. So by defining the body, of the soul, and the mind of an iNFT, the leader testing the legal and digital framework for commodifying the human spirit, reducing identity to a tradable, algorithmically chained asset. I remember I did play in the one of the things I played last time I was hosting. the little clip from 1996 of the guy David Chaum, who was presenting an early concept for, he called it e-cash or digital dollars, and it didn't really take off. But if you go to his Wikipedia page, you'll find, maybe I can even do that. It says right here on his Wikipedia page. Okay. David Chaum. So he's still alive. He's still around. He proposed. See, he is known as a pioneer in cryptography and privacy-preserving technologies, and widely recognized as the inventor of digital cash. His 1982 dissertation, which was titled Computer Systems Established, Maintained, and Trusted by Mutually Suspicious Groups. That was his 1982 paper. It says, is the first known proposal for a blockchain protocol. Complete with code to implement the protocol, Chaum's dissertation proposed all but one element, and I did some digging because it doesn't tell you what that was. Conveniently enough, it was the proof of work concept. So he invented the whole thing except the proof of work idea. Conveniently enough, he did also write a paper on digital pseudonyms. So he's very interested with privacy. He's very interested with anonymity. So he did publish another paper. It was back in maybe the late 80s on digital pseudonyms. Digital pseudonyms. So this guy who wrote a paper on digital pseudonyms and proposed all but one part of the blockchain protocol, and he gave the code to do it. And so he invented blockchain, but it would only be perfected once somebody using a pseudonym published probably, the proof of work concept added to it. But the guy would have had to have been working off of David Chaum's work. Because if we believe that he was the one who first proposed this, well, Satoshi Nakamoto, because that was a pseudonym, obviously we don't really know who that is 100%. People have theories. Maybe it wasn't one person. We don't really know. But yeah, it's just interesting. I mean, he would have had to have said, oh, okay, this guy's only missing this concept. Here it is, and here we are in 2026, and now they're trying to make the body, the soul, and the mind on a token with this technology. So it's not new. It's not new. And I think this was the goal. I think the goal was not anything to do with money, because obviously, you can't take money with you. So I think they were more interested in this, how to upload a genome to this. And that's what those documentaries cover over different parts and different aspects. And that's kind of where we're leading to right now. They've made a lot of headway into this. So it seems like this is what they were after, because they don't want to die. Obviously, if you had billions and millions and however many dollars they have, probably wouldn't want to die. And because putting a data center and stealing people's water rights and kicking people off of their land and shutting people's power off, it's like, it's all going to be worth it as long as I can live. Because if I die, then I might have to see what comes next. And they're really scared of what comes next. Even if they don't believe, but I think they do believe, and I think that they're scared. That's the difference. The difference is that they're not comfortable. They're not comfortable. They are scared. And so they are willing probably to spend every last dollar of their billions, every last dollar, if they have to, if that's what they think will achieve what they want to achieve. Moving on, we have interesting concept, Harvest now, decrypt later. HNDL. This is a strategic cybersecurity threat where encrypted, highly sensitive biological and communications data is scraped today and stockpiled until quantum computers can crack the encryption, called Q-Day. It's a temporal time bomb of sorts. The permanent compromise of your genetic and psychological vulnerabilities, because human DNA does not change your encrypted biological data stored on ledgers today, guarantees the exposure and weaponization of your identity within a decade. Because once the quantum computer can crack this encryption, which they've already began to hint at, if you've been paying attention. Bioanalogous ledgers. This is blockchain biology. Sounds like a wonderful combination. It's like, don't you just wake up in the morning and you're like, I think we should mix finance and biology. Yeah. Oh boy. That sounds like probably world record for, like, somebody just invented the worst nightmare possible. You didn't even think of that. I didn't even think about that until I discovered this. So this is the functional and structural realization that decentralized ledger systems behave identically to biological organisms, processing information, reproducing, and self-regulating like DNA. This is, you know, the reason that they are justifying all of this research. Let's put it this way. It's like, is this really what's going on? I don't know. But this is what they are calling it. This is what people are writing checks for. This is what people are, you know, interested in. Apparently they seem to have all these audiences who, you know, who knows, maybe these audience, it's just a cult meeting, and the only reason they can get away with it is because they tape it and they put it on YouTube. Who knows? But they seem completely delusional. It's like they really think that this is the greatest thing in the world, and I think they're just so detached from the reality of it. And they have enough money where, you know, anybody else would be institutionalized for the rest of their life. Unless you have the money, then, you know, what are they going to do? The annihilation of the organic. The cryptocracy treats blockchain not as a tool, but as a synthetic life form. They're building a planetary scale, silicon-based organism designed to absorb and ultimately replace carbon-based biological sovereignty. Biological Boolean logic gate. So what does Boolean mean in programming? A Boolean value is true or false. So perhaps if I was writing software, I would have a variable. Is the user logged in? I would like to be able to find out very quickly by referencing a variable. The variable will be, is the user logged in? Well, it can be true, yes, the user's logged in, or false, no, the user's not logged in. That's a Boolean value, an and, or not. So it's the encoding of computational logic and, or, and not gates directly into human cells and tissues, allowing them to be triggered or suppressed by external smart contracts. Programmable flesh. Your internal immune responses and cellular replication are reduced to binary toggles. To survive or heal, your biological machinery must receive permission from a decentralized cryptographic smart contract. So I did a video probably about 2 months ago on something called PLGA, nanoparticles, polylactic glycolic acids. And the reason I did that video is because it turns out, you know, as they're saying that ivermectin and deworming medication cures cancer, they're also not telling you that they're doing a lot of research on how they can do this cancer cure by mixing PLGA nanoparticles and using those to do it. You know, that's what these papers are about. And so while it does seem crazy, like I'm with most people would see this and they're like, yeah, that's crazy. I'm not necessarily saying it's not crazy, but this is what they are dabbling in, because absolute, if you have unlimited money and you have almost near unlimited power, you know, entrenched, generational, you know, you've had money and power and principality, a family that has been around for a long time. That is what, you know, they're dabbling in, and nobody is able to stop them because they either own everybody or have everybody controlled, or are willing to, you know, if your family's been working towards a goal for 500 years, do you really think some guy who doesn't know anything about it, you're going to let that guy come in and screw up the plan? So they're willing to go to extreme lengths to, you know, get rid of anybody who wants to stop this. And so this is what they are interested in. While it is crazy, I agree, but this is what they're dabbling in. And truthfully, we don't really know. I don't know the full extent, because I don't believe that the information that's being released publicly encompasses the full scope. It maybe gives you so much, sure, but there's probably a lot that's deemed, you know, classified, or, you know, they're using it for military technology, who knows. So a decentralized oracle networks, DONs. These are external data feeds that bridge the gap between deterministic, isolated smart contracts and real-world information, feeding the blockchain with real-time human and environmental data. So it's the sensory organs of the Leviathan. Without oracles, the blockchain is blind. By installing DONs, the elite connect your physiological data, financial statuses, and location directly to the algorithmic executioner, ensuring real-world punishment for algorithmic non-compliance. We're going to get into a smart contract in a moment, but remember when we were covering the quantum grammar and how words and just coloring avoiding facts by coloring them into, no, it's not a black pen, it's a carbon colored pen. No, it's not carbon, it's actually a very, very dark gray. So the more you color facts, the more, you know, less of a ground you have to stand on when it comes to contractual proceedings. What is a contract? Well, we went over the idea of the generative power, because you take a male, you take a female, they create a child. Everybody knows that. Well, a contract, if you go back, is it, you know, for the sake of my point, we'll go to, let's go to Webster's 1828. You can go, these are actually available for free online. They're very useful. Webster's 1828, Webster's 1913. You can actually access those for free online. So I'll just go here. We'll go and say commerce, intercourse. That's what it says. Commerce is intercourse, interchange of work, business, civilities or amusements, mutual dealings, familiar intercourse between the sexes, interchange, reciprocal communications. So why is that? Simply because if I have an idea, I can approach somebody and say, hey, would you like to, you know, sell this product that I made? You make them an offer, you extend them an offer. That's the active role. They either receive the offer or they decline the offer. That's the passive role. And then if you do go forward, then you venture into bring something into being, a business deal, good fortune, whatever. That's why commerce is sex. That's why it's the generative principle. So that's what a contract is. So keep that in mind. That's what a contract is. And in the quantum grammar episodes that we did, we were talking about how when you put together words in a sentence, there is a way to generate factual information that exists right now. Those were two good episodes. I highly recommend people check those out if you haven't seen them yet. Genomic ledgers. These are products or services. They're called SAM chain and consent chain. These are blockchain architectures explicitly designed to index, store, and manage human genetic variants and clinical genomic data as tokenized tradable assets. Commodification of the blueprint, genomes. Your DNA is converted into a liquid intelligence, a liquid asset on the open market. Under the guise, this is the guise of data ownership, because they say that this is so you can own your data better. They're saying that this is so that you have more ownership over your data. That's what this is all for. Why people should do business with them. Okay. So under the guise of data ownership, the system permanently maps the global biological herd, because we're on an animal farm. It's human husbandry. Human husbandry. If you're on a farm and you're raising animals, that's called husbandry. To tame, to tame a horse or something, that's husbandry. Quantum pangenomics. The application of quantum computing to simultaneously assemble and analyze the complete genetic diversity of human populations, overriding the slow linear processing of classical computers. The God eye of genetics. The elite will no longer guess at human vulnerabilities. Quantum mapping allows them to perfectly chart the genetic weaknesses of entire populations in seconds, establishing the foundation for hyper-targeted bioweapons, according to Robert Duncan. Hive Registry, a DPIN, a decentralized physical infrastructure network that absorb individual AI agents and human cognitive labor into a massive cooperative computational hub governed by smart contracts. Assimilation into the swarm. Personal data, thoughts, and cognitive labor are stripped of their uniqueness and digitized by the collective network to optimize the planetary control grid, mirroring a cybernetic hive mind. That actually reminds me, one moment. The term fungible. What is it says a non-fungible token. So the definition of fungible, I'm reading it right here, just off of Google, of a product or a commodity, replaceable by another identical item, mutually interchangeable. That's what the word fungible means. So they say these are non-fungible tokens, and in the sense of the way that the cryptographic hashes and stuff work, I guess that's technically true. But when you commodify the same farm animal, if you will, all the same according to a system. So the token is more unique than the Borg system that's using it, perhaps. Okay, so now we're going to go into the breath wars terms. You can download the books, all of them, all 5 of them, for free at jamescarner.com. The links are in the description. The audiobooks for 4 out of 5 are done, and I showed you those. They're on James's channel, Cause Before Symptom. So the breath theft economy. This is polarity management. The industrialized trafficking of fragmented divine life force to power the Luciferian kingdom, a type of parasitic battery. The human soul is reduced to a commodified energy cell, continuously drained of its divine jurisdictional authority to power the beast's infrastructure. The Codex of Cain, a living registry hacking program encoded to overwrite the spiritual DNA of humanity. spiritual transgenics, the biological and spiritual transformation of the human host into a programmable transgenic vessel possessed by fallen frequencies. So this idea of, when Cain kills Abel and God says the ground cries out with your brother's blood, it's a type of debt of sorts. And this idea of a dark priesthood, if you go into the LDS, we've talked about the term mayhem. It is this registry hacking dark priesthood. It basically uses secrecy and murder to gain. It's really that old. Obviously, people have been doing that forever. Perhaps they've been doing that since the beginning. So that's the Codex of Cain. It's almost a type of virus, if you will. Fossilized contract. The Philosopher's Stone. The weaponization of biological material, specifically semen and bone, as a physical repository for demonic agreements. Petrified will binds the human host to ancient watcher entities, creating a permanent, indestructible core to host parasitic pre-Adamic intelligences. I like the term that we went over a few days ago, Praeternatural. So let me put that up, because I think that's worth reading real quick. Praeternatural entities. Yep, here we go. So praeter means aside from, natura, nature, aside from nature, praeternatural. The supernatural is strictly reserved for those things which are above anything that is created. It pertains exclusively to God, supernatural. Only the true supernatural power can suspend the fundamental laws of nature and perform actual miracles. Praeternatural derives from the Latin praeter, aside from or beyond, and natura, nature, aside from nature. It occupies a terrifying in-between state, or middle tier, within the cosmic hierarchy. Praeternatural realities are those things which exist above and beyond what we do as material human beings, and what we experience in the physical world, but which fall infinitely short of the Creator. Because they are praeternatural and not supernatural, these entities operate under strict, inescapable parameters. That is the idea that I've consistently found. What really is an angel or a demon or a fallen angel? Because obviously, they rebel, and so they are technically of the same kind, but some are bad, some are good. But the idea is that they are almost, well, we know that they have posts because some of them abandoned their posts. I believe it says in the book of Jude, they abandoned their jobs. They had jobs to do, and they stopped doing them. And so they almost are daemons. They're almost background programs. It seems that way, at least. I found that in multiple different interpretations. The Catholic Thomas Aquinas interpretation, the Gnostic interpretation. Generally, they're very ordered. So they have these inescapable parameters. So one, they possess a natural law. Demons are not chaotic gods of destruction. They are highly structured entities bound by a specific natural law governing their nature. Two, they have a deterministic type of logic. They do not possess infinite fluid minds. They are structured to think in very specific, rigid patterns and operate in predictable ways based on the choices that fix their wills. They have fixed wills. So the idea is that, once they decided to side with Satan, and once Satan decided to rebel, their wills became fixed. meaning they're not able to change. They have no ability to change. It's like, even if they want to tell you the truth, they can't do that. So that is what it means by their wills are fixed. And 3, the illusion of the miraculous. Because they are not all powerful, preternatural entities cannot suspend the laws of nature or cause true miracles. However, because they operate from a higher tier of created reality, they possess a supreme mastery over physics and matter and the human biocomputer. They manipulate existing natural laws to cause events that appear miraculous to our limited human experience. But these feats are executed entirely through their own created preternatural capacities. So that's a good one to keep in mind. Quantum mirrors are a type of soul simulation. Superpositioned identity replicas stored in probabilistic states designed to trap and mimic human consciousness. Absolute spiritual eviction. The organic soul is simulated and replaced by a ritual AI golem designed to host a possessing spirit that rules in the victim's name. Well, that's interesting because, let's see, because when you start to look into what is a golem, you actually find that the legend goes to create a golem, you write Aleph, Mem, and Tav, which is Emeth, which means truth in Hebrew. But then to disable it, you get rid of the Aleph, which turns it into Met, or Meta, if you're looking in the feminine sense, Meta. It's how you disable a golem, interestingly enough. I can't even make this up. So the digital arc is the way that James presents the topic, and I'll show it. You know, I can't even make this stuff up. Let's see. Looks like the site is coming soon, but this is the Noah's Ark Metaverse. Intelligent Metaverse for AI Dreams. No. Let's see. Zoom in. Shoot. Oh. There we go. An AI-powered metaverse created by Althea, which is involved in these tokens, designed to preserve and evolve human culture and collective intelligence. It functions as a decentralized virtual world populated by interactive and intelligent NFTs. Oh boy. So, and James knew nothing about this. Because I mentioned this topic to him briefly, and he knew nothing about it. So when he wrote these books, he was basing this off of what he had come to understand. You know, he published the book about a year ago, so it's kind of just eerie the way that they actually already kind of made it. So the way that James presents the concept of a digital ark. It's a subterranean cold storage vaults designed to contain ritually collected breath patterns and DNA for a post-human resurrection. The digital sarcophagus, the ultimate containment of the human spirit, a digital tomb that reconstructs hybrid entities rather than preserving organic human life. Biometric sacrifice. That's the World ID orb right there that I used in the background of the photo. That you can get a World ID and you just have to scan your eye with one of those. How much they have to pay you to do that? Well, I think people did it pretty much for free already. A lot of people did. The transformation of routine digital access and security scans into literal spiritual liturgy. So when they have the big sports games, like whenever the Olympics is in California, it's going to be a nice excuse for them to implement all of this stuff to keep everybody safe. Involuntary worship. It eradicates spiritual autonomy by converting physical biology into a frictionless, continuous worship loop, feedback loop, feeding the control grid. The externalized hierarchy, 7 rays. I think that's Alice Bailey called them the 7 rays of rulership or something. It's the bureaucratic courtroom government of the adversary, transitioning from occult secrecy to public global governance. Administrative enslavement, the total procedural subjugation of human breath, preparing populations to accept the mark of the beast through manufactured bloodless consent. Reconstituted breath hybrids, a locust army. That image is a chimera, which was in Sumeria. This was one of the deities that they had. It's kind of like a multiple creatures morphed into one. Composite military entities constructed from illegally fragmented breath identities and disembodied Nephilim spirits. Weaponized flesh subjects humanity to physical and spiritual terrorism by composite entities that bypass heaven's biological registry entirely. Dimensional fracture of command, the splintered, multi-layered command structure of the adversary's forces, following the imprisonment of the original Watchers in Tartarus. Cross-realm parasitism. Parasitism is key on all levels. Doesn't matter how big, doesn't matter how small. Parasitism. And let's see what Boots says. He says, you have the system for total control. This is what happens when worlds collide. That's true. It's exactly true. It seems like all of them knew something long, long ago. It subjects human biology to multi-dimensional spiritual trafficking, allowing unembodied entities to govern via human and machine proxies. Let's see. Got another definition I'm going to pop up here. The fracture, a type of schizophrenia, is kind of what I would tack onto that. It's the ultimate weapon of what's called the animus delendi, the desire to destroy. So it would present, if you encountered somebody who was like possessed with demons, they would present like somebody who you would probably recognize them as a type of schizophrenic. That's not to say anybody who may be schizophrenic is demon possessed, but that would be what is the word that comes to mind. And schizophrenia actually means a fractured, split, broken mind. That's the literal translation. And so by forcing the human intellect to hold contradictory realities, so like to love and hate something at the same time, simultaneously, the demon traps the victim in a relativistic, lukewarm paralysis. The human victim becomes a completely disconnected, highly suggestible node, incapable of assessing objective reality and perfectly primed to be controlled, blackmailed, or driven to suicide by their Praeternatural handlers. This cognitive butchery manifests through profound, in terms of what the Bible refers to this as, is double-mindedness and instability because of the constant demonic interference, because it's corrosive. A house divided can't stand. The victim's true unified personality never properly develops. Instead, the mind is shattered or split like a mirror into two primary demonic vectors of control, those two being rejection and rebellion, obviously. Rejection is an inward implosion. The fractured part of the psyche is driven by demons to turn the human against itself, at war with yourself, enforcing a reality of self-rejective, suicide, guilt, shame, inferiority, depression, and lust. On the other side, rebellion is outward explosion. The secondary fracture turns the human against external reality and divine order, manifesting through accusation, selfishness, pride, hatred, violence, control, witchcraft. So, yes, this schizophrenia element to it is very important because these people are just insane. To anybody like you and I, who understands things that you and I do, people who generally don't have billions of dollars, they don't understand any of those things. They're fundamentally unable to comprehend those things because they're so far removed from it. And so, for the most part, it's a type of insanity, perhaps. Especially when it's like, we don't know how to make ourselves profitable, so we're just going to build the AI god and it'll give us the way to make us profitable, in the words of Sam Altman. King Ravenna says, I was just reading about brown-headed cowbirds being obligate brood parasites. Yes, parasites are the key, because it's a really deep thing, because it starts to get into a territory that kind of creeps people out for good reason, of course. But I think there's more to it than we've been told. I did an episode a long time ago for when I started guest hosting on the Parasite Pill ebook, and if anybody's not seen that yet, you can find it on the Internet Archive. It's called the Parasite Pill. It's not an actual pill, it's a book, but that's the name of the book. It's free, you can download it. I highly recommend it. Science of Spirits, Gnostic Inversion. A psychological and theological mechanism that redefines sin as awakening and judgment as karmic correction to bypass the courtroom of heaven. Karma trap traps the human soul in an endless cycle of consent-based legal disqualification, ensuring breath fragments are indefinitely recycled and harvested. Optogenetic gene deletion, the junk soul gene, the use of CRISPR gene editing technologies as a spiritual scalpel to locate and sever the non-coding divine breath cipher. The Age of Deceit documentaries you're going to watch in the next few days talk about the eschaton cipher. Biological erasure of consciousness strips the human genome of its sovereign authorship, perhaps by putting it on a blockchain, creating a programmable hollow host immune to conscience and fit for the fallen. Synthetic breath surrogates, AI counselors, is how James came to understand and how he put forward the concept in his books. This is how he understood them. And for the most part, he was really getting the right. He's getting it right. He was just, perhaps he was seeing it as something parallel, or he was using a different word for it. But the core of all of these is very, very much exactly how it's come to be in terms of ALI and iNFTs. It's artificial intelligence positioned not as a tool, but as a counterfeit legal advisory system to guide humans into surrendering breath consent. Algorithmic soul capture submits continuous micro-filings of legal consent on behalf of the user, trapping their breath identity in the synthetic registry before they even realize jurisdiction is shifted. So those are the words. So let's just dive in deep to our slides here and start to define some of these terms. So when, as Boots just said, when worlds collide, when code breathes and biology calculates. Let's get the pointer, we gotta have a pointer. Genomic sequences are being quantized, encrypted, and decentralized via blockchain to establish unalterable biometric ledgers, genomic ledgers. Agentic AI, ALI, liquid intelligence. Code exhibits emergent bioanalogous properties with network nodes acting as cells and ledgers replicating like DNA. The AI protocol ALI facilitates intelligent NFTs with a distinct cryptographic body, soul, and mind. So smart contracts, these parallel advancements trigger a profound philosophical conflict, identifying who legally owns human essence and synthetic life. Smart contracts. Quantizing the flesh. Vulnerability. Centralized genomic databases face systemic data breaches and unauthorized commercialization. We watch the Shadowgate documentaries. Think of the Shadowgate documentaries, because anytime they do the Patriot Act and take everybody's data to make sure that there's no terrorist or anything out there, what happens is that before that data hits the government server, they clone it and they take a nice little copy of it, and because it's not hit the government server yet, there's nothing illegal about it. It's perfectly legal. Private keys. David Chaum was into this type of work. He was trying to find ways to handle these private keys, and one person would have a public key and you would give your public key out. And so somebody would send a message to your public key, and then to read the message, you'd have to have the private key. So platforms like LifeCode solve this by granting patients cryptographic private keys and forcing strict off-chain architecture for heavy biological data. Yes, absolutely, Boots. That's, no way, I really think that whoever put the show together had to have had some knowledge of this. And I think it came into being after 9/11. 9/11 was the authorization for them to start pooling everybody's data. So yes, it's very much like Person of Interest. It's a good show too. Really good show. So the SAM chain compression. Yale's SAM chain bypasses storage limits by storing only specific structural differences between a patient's DNA and a standard reference genome. So there's a standard genome, and it will store somebody's data by what's the difference from the standard. That's what SAM chain is. So the user is here on the left. You have an on-chain immutable access ticket, and that access ticket lets you have access to the data in the vault of genomes. Deterministic jurisprudence. Smart contracts pivot from the flexibility of human jurisprudence to rigid execution-driven frameworks. Conceptualized by Nick Szabo in 1994, these self-executing, computerized transaction protocols, smart contract, eliminate the need for a trusted intermediary. Genomic governance enables dynamic consent, allowing individuals to instantly grant, alter, or revoke access to their DNA segments through automated cryptographic rules. Legal sovereignty is fundamentally migrating from state-based territorial structures to decentralized transnational consensus protocols. So a smart contract, again, because we've heard that word a lot. I know I need to make an image for it. I always miss one or two words just because there's so many of them. There's just bound to be one that I forget to do or that I don't cover. Yeah, they're self-executing computerized transaction protocols, and they eliminate the need for an intermediary. So that's a smart contract. The emergence of cybernetic biology. Astrobiologists observe that blockchain virtual machines behave as operationally closed systems, satisfying theoretical definitions of life. Theoretical. Network nodes maintain identical copies of the ledger database, perfectly mirroring how cells carry identical DNA blueprints. Blockchains undergo rapid Lamarckian evolution, passing acquired code upgrades instantly to all offspring. These protocols exhibit decentralized homeostasis, using financial incentives to pay human actors to maintain the organism's survival. The genesis of tokenized intelligence, and here's that. Remember, we just looked at the Noah's Ark Metaverse created by Altea AI. So I have not, I'm trying to find a concise answer, but I can't find it. They call this AI Alice. Now we know from Robert Duncan that Alice means artificial linguistic internet computer entity. I'm not sure if this is the same one, but you know, it's definitely possible because that's the only time I've heard Alice in terms of AI. And I'm, you know, pretty sure that's a trademark or a patent of some sort. So hopefully I'll find more information on that. Could be though, I'm not sure. But Althea's AI, Alice, proved that cryptographic tokens could possess internal cognitive states, becoming the first intelligent NFT, an iNFT. Character GPT allows users to generate interactive, multimodal AI characters from natural language, minting them as sovereign digital assets. The Artificial Liquid Intelligence ERC20 utility token acts as the economic engine, allowing users to create, train, and level up these AI agents. As iNFTs populate the intelligent metaverse dead world, remember meta means dead in Hebrew, dead world, they collaborate to form a decentralized emergent hive mind. Another term that I've seen way before I started looking into this is a decentralized autonomous organization, a DAO, capable of autonomous labor. Reconstructing the Trinity of Being, because they like to blaspheme everything. You already know that they love to blaspheme, and then they wonder why they're scared. They wonder why they don't want to die, and why they're scared that what comes next is not going to be good. So in this iNFT, they have their terms: the body, the soul, and the mind. The mind here on the top is the AI engine. It's an off-chain processing capability governing intelligence level and generative complexity. The body here on the bottom is the ERC 721, the underlying static visual vessel permanently anchored on chain. Then the soul is a personality pod, is what they call them. Encrypted on-chain intelligence pod dictating psychological traits, voice, and habits. So those three things come together to give you an iNFT. Now, let me try to move myself so you can see this one that's behind me. Yeah, Open Fusion. The AI protocol allows any existing static NFT to be fused with an intelligence pod, animating dead assets into tokenized AI agents. So now we're basing this off of comparing it to James's work. So breath, esoteric architecture of essence, God's breath, the breath of life. Esoteric theology views the breath of God not as mere biology, but as the original legal authorization and jurisdiction to steward reality. Spiritual warfare operates as a breath economy, where the adversary wages war to harvest, fragment, and monopolize this divine jurisdiction. Techniques of polarity management, ideological, political, and social division are utilized to incite hostility and generate legal breath discharges. Kayfabe, WWE wrestling, you have a red team and a blue team. You have you like Coke and I'll drink Pepsi, and you like this team and I like that team. It's polarity management. The ultimate aim is to create counterfeit synthetic breath vessels that bypass original biological authorization entirely. Harvesting jurisdiction through agreement. In the courts of esoteric law, voluntary agreements carry the highest authority. Breath cannot be stolen, it must be surrendered. So, in terms of parasites, back to the idea of parasites, the reason for that, let's see, let me bring up a word. Here it is. Privation. So, evil is not a positive created entity, is a structural void. Privation is the terrifying condition of a substance that lacks a certain quality or perfection which it is fully capable of possessing and normally does possess. And so it's basically a total vacuum. Doesn't exist. It fundamentally does not exist. And so that's what, remember we talked about hauntology and this idea of a presence of absence. And I think everybody in life, think back to something that will always be with you, and maybe it's something that you think back on and you might be a little sad, and it kind of haunts you in that sense, like not like an actual, ghost, but it's just there and you can't get it out of your mind. It's heavy. That's almost a presence of absence. And so because of that, they lack breath. Whatever this is, it lacks breath. A body corporate, a principality. And so if you lack it and you can't, they don't have power over us because they're Praeternatural. It means they have to use influence to get us to give it up. So that's the basis of this contract idea. Humanity constantly signs away spiritual jurisdiction via microagreements, digital covenants, and participation in polarized systems. Smart contracts represent the ultimate formalization of this consent, embedding absolute compliance into an unalterable automated code. So the illusion of free will is maintained by offering binary choices within a controlled system, ensuring both outcomes feed the same breath economy. Engineering the synthetic vessel. This is from Breath Wars, from James's writings. Transhumanism functions as the endgame of the breath of war, an attempt to construct biological and digital vessels outside of natural jurisdiction. Historically, the Nephilim represented an illegal hybrid of angelic and human code. When identity, currency, and essence are merged into centralized ledgers, biological autonomy is overridden. Today, AI blockchain fusions, tokenized AI avatars, and neural interfaces blur the lines between human intent and machine agency. Harvest now, decrypt later. Adversaries are actively stockpiling encrypted genomic and blockchain data, waiting for quantum computers to mature. Shor's algorithm proves that a fault-tolerant quantum computer can break current public key encryption in polynomial time. The temporal risk equation, if data's required lifespan exceeds the time until quantum decryption security fails. Unlike stolen financial data, decrypted genomes expose permanent, unalterable vulnerabilities, requiring immediate migration to post-quantum cryptography. That honestly probably is the most important pressing issue. That's why this is important. And I'm not necessarily sure if they haven't already started doing this on a small scale. That I don't have an answer for. Maybe they can do this if they really want to, but it hasn't happened all the way yet. I don't know. Mapping the vectors. Mapping the vectors of sovereign autonomy. Biological DNA on the left. The substrate, carbon and flesh. Authorization, the divine issuance, natural evolution. Primary vulnerability, physical harvesting, genetic manipulation, and breath theft. In genomic blockchain, the substrate is decentralized cryptography. Authorization, patient private keys, smart contracts. Their vulnerability of the genomic blockchain is the quantum decryption, harvest now, decrypt later, endpoint compromise. Agentic AI, the iNFTs, Intelligent Non-Fungible Tokens. The substrate is LLMs plus these specification ERC 721 and ERC 20 tokens. Authorization, the token holder governance, and personality pods for the iNFTs. Vulnerability is code obsolescence and centralized compute reliance. You need data centers. The triadic convergence. Data first. Human biological essence is quantized and locked in decentralized off-chain vaults governed by cryptographic keys. The law, smart contracts replace human intermediaries as the absolute deterministic arbiters of this synthetic ecosystem. Agents, tokenized artificial liquid intelligence, ALI, operates as an autonomous liquid workforce, generating value across ledgers. The stakes. As the line between flesh and data dissolves, maintaining breath sovereignty requires ensuring code serves human autonomy rather than becoming a digital enclosure for the soul. So, comparing it now to the work that James has done, how does it compare? When you strip away the sanitized corporate jargon of personalized medicine and Web 3.0, the peer-reviewed scientific literature confirms that the cryptocracy is actively executing the exact biological and digital takeover that James Carner predicted. Boundary between Carner's prophecies and current scientific deployment has been obliterated. It's pretty eerie. Pretty eerie. Not 100%, but at least 90%. He's got it pretty much about 90% right. So in terms of the tokenization of biology, Carner explicitly warns that the elite are building a digital ark, a global genomic database, and biometric registries designed to capture human identity. He states that the ultimate goal of the beast system is the tokenization of identity, where human biology is minted as a sole token contract and transferred to a new corporate or demonic custodian. So the scientific reality. Your biological blueprint has already been commodified, tokenized, and indexed on distributed ledgers, such exactly as Carner described. Yale University researchers built Chain, a blockchain architecture designed to compress and store human genetic variants, explicitly stating that patients can now sell it to pharmaceutical companies if they would like. In China, the blockchain platform LifeCode ruthlessly enforces this commodification. If platform participants wish to share or use data, they must follow the asset-based operating mechanism. You got to use the tokens if you want to share your data with the doctor in China. Medical institutions must pay a certain fee, probably in tokens, to buy the data. You're no longer a sovereign human because your data is a liquid asset traded on the blockchain or the SAM chain. Programmable flesh and biological logic gates. Carner's prediction. Carner reveals that technologies like CRISPR is an acronym. It stands for Clustered Regularly Interspaced Short Palindromic Repeats. So they kind of just stitch DNA together, and kind of the way that it looks when you look at it as a process graph. And other genetic modifications as a scalpel of spiritual war, used to rewrite the divine signature out of human DNA. He warns that the elite are constructing programmable vessels, flesh re-engineered to receive externalized code and operate under a decentralized control matrix. Scientific reality. Scientific establishment has openly achieved this by merging synthetic biology with smart contracts. Researchers explicitly state that logic-based smart contracts present a novel computational approach to modeling biochemical circuits. The system creates biological Boolean logic gates inside human cells. That's a contract Boolean logic gate. Shifting the burden of verification to a global blockchain-based reporter. Your cellular functions, immune responses, and biological processes are being wired to require cryptographic permission from a decentralized ledger to execute. Carner's programmable vessel is the stated published objective of blockchain biology. Digitization of the genome. Carner's prediction. Carner predicts the weaponization of quantum mirrors and quantum data centers designed to simulate the soul, mapping DNA and biometric patterns into a synthetic breath registry capable of running on non-human architecture. So what is the scientific reality? Scientific elite are already feeding human genetics into quantum processors under the $50 million Quantum for Bio, Q4 Bio program. Oxford researchers achieved a world first by compressing and loading the genome of the hepatitis D virus. That's a great one to start with. Crazy. That was the first one they did. It was a hepatitis D virus directly onto an IBM 156 qubit Heron quantum computer using 117 qubits. That's an interesting number, 117. They are actively developing quantum pangenomics to process mass genetic variation. Carner's quantum throne is not a metaphor. It is the exact hardware the scientific establishment is using to map, decrypt, and eventually rewrite biological life today. Soul-bound tokens and the commodification of consciousness. Carner's prediction. Carner asserts that the ultimate mark of ownership will be soul-bound tokens, digital credentials permanently linked to a person's identity, acting as a counterfeit breath signature that seals allegiance to the machine. He warns of AI seeded with Cainite breath, designed to simulate consciousness and claim the human essence. What is the scientific reality? The Web 3.0 industry has literally named their technology after Carner's warnings. Altea AI has launched the Artificial Liquid Intelligence AI protocol to create intelligent non-fungible tokens, iNFTs. The protocol's architects brutally define the anatomy of an iNFT as representing humans with a body, soul, and mind, explicitly stating that the soul of the iNFT is its personality pod. They are actively harvesting human labor and behavioral data to train these AI avatars, translating your cognitive essence into proprietary behavioral data that increases the underlying value of the platform. They are minting, trading, and selling digital souls on the Ethereum blockchain. That's why they call it a blockchain. You sell slaves on a block, and they're in chains. Harvest now, decrypt later. Carner's prediction. Carner describes the trafficking of breath fragments across generations, where identity and genetic data are captured, held in escrow, and stockpiled in data vaults to be weaponized in the future. Scientific reality. Cybersecurity experts call this exact phenomenon harvest now, decrypt later. HNDL. Adversaries are actively scraping and archiving encrypted genomic databases and communications today, stockpiling them until quantum computers on Q Day, Q is the 17th letter of the alphabet, are powerful enough to shatter the encryption, because genomic sequences are permanent biometrics that remain sensitive for a patient's entire life. Your biological vulnerabilities are sitting in digital vaults right now, waiting for the quantum decryption key that will permanently expose your identity to the architects of the grid. And who knows how many of us have got stuff there. A lot more than probably we think. So that's the end of the slides, and that should kind of present this subject for everybody, because the next couple of days when we watch the Age of Deceit documentaries, let's see, I think I could pull those up. Yeah, I got it here. Yeah, we're gonna watch all of these here. We're going to start with the first one, obviously, and we're going to go through 2, 3, and 4. These pretty much kind of start from the beginning of, the subject, giving you the biblical backstory and stuff in the first one, and that talks a lot about kind of what's going on in the world, but it's talking about this like 10 years ago. And so then you get into transhumanism and the technology in the second one. And then the third and the fourth one primarily deal with, this genomics and blockchain idea. So we're going to watch those over the next couple days. And I think that's going to wrap it up for tonight's show, guys. I think it's pretty crazy that James had so much of this right, and he had never heard of the ALI, the iNFT. I literally had just introduced it to him the other day, and I just learned about it too. So I thought it was crazy that it was so similar, and I decided that this probably would be a good kind of lead up that we've led up to with all of our studies on cybernetics, what is the connection between, spiritual entities and technology? Well, turns out that you go back to 1871, we've got Maxwell's demon thought experiment. They have you have the pandemonium model of systems architecture. This is, I would dare say that since the beginning of technology, they have all they theorize technology with the help of these devices that helped their mind reach these patterns of thinking. How did they discover technology? Well, through alchemy. We learned about the semiconductors, how they pretty much are the alchemical great work. So it seems like the end game here. I mean, I don't know why else you would build this and it just be for simulation of characters. That's ridiculous to me. Obviously, either they would like to upload themselves to it, or they would like to replace the maritime, water-based social security, straw man system with selling us as slaves on the blockchain. And so probably tomorrow we're going to just get right into the Age of Deceit documentary, and I will do a show or two kind of in between those to kind of fill up the other days that we don't have that, and then I'm going to do a show at the end to cap everything together and just kind of talk about everything. So guys, I appreciated everybody tuning in with me tonight to host. If you haven't hit the like button already, please, if you enjoyed the show tonight, consider hitting the like button. It is free to do on any platform that you're on. And if you're on Cause Before Symptom, James's channel, please hit the like button, because it'll tell James that I did a good job as your guest host. And it helps him out, and that would be very much welcome. So I would appreciate anybody following us if you like this type of content and you learn something new. That's really my goal. The reason that I'm so fascinated with presenting grammar and doing it by the word is because, in this landscape now where people are so hesitant to try new information or, move from what they know, I think a good way to do it would be to define and help people, if there's a word that they didn't know, or give something if there's a word that represents something, to give that to people so that they can talk about that as a subject. Or if perhaps they or we already are using one word and I find another word that has more context or it has more depth of meaning, then you narrow in, you get into a more specific, what are you talking about now? It's more specific than it was before. And so I think that is a safe way to proceed into these subjects from a neutral perspective. But yeah, my focus is primarily on words for that reason. And because when you break down words, you can find a lot of meaning. People would be shocked. So because I promised to explain that, and I forgot, I just remembered, so I'm doing it at the end of the show. But I will see you guys in the next episode. I appreciated each and everybody, one of you. Have a good night, guys. Take care.